Hello, Anatomy and Physiology Honors class. Here we are on Monday, April 17th, and we are going over our digestive enzymes and the hormones that get released to stimulate all of those excretions from our liver, pancreas, and gallbladder, the structures we talked about last time. All right, so we're not going to actually fill this chart out. It's in your notes. We're not going to fill it out yet, I should say. But we are eventually going to cover all of these different enzymes. Some of them already look familiar to you, hopefully. Salivary amylase and pepsin. So as we go through, be thinking about the substrates, the products, what body part is secreting it, what sort of activates it or what stimulates it. And we're going to go through all of this eventually as a nice review, except for the one that I have crossed out there for you. So just to sort of show you what we are looking ahead to. All right, so most of the things we're going to be doing today are filling out some flow charts, not so much labeling of pictures. This guy is on page 11 of your packet. And we already copied this information down that you see here. It's a little different than before. I color coded it after I started preparing today's slideshow because I realized it might be helpful for you color coding kind of people to identify each of these different enzymes with the different substances that they secrete. For all of you, whether you want to color code or not, by all means, if you already wrote this down in black, like maybe I would just underline things with a highlighter. The colors aren't very significant, so you could pick whatever works for you. But everybody kind of in the corner here, doesn't have to be really big, but I want you to jot down this. This is a review from Unit 2. I had an assignment for you to do yesterday that related back to this as well. But most of these enzymes are meant to break down our large macromolecules into smaller and smaller monomers. So as we go through each of these, I've color-coded them based on what macromolecule that they're breaking down. So for example, we already talked about salivary amylase. It digests starches, sugars in your mouth, and that is a type of carbohydrate. The monomer of that is our simple sugars, monosaccharides. And so I changed this to be pink in color to match that. And in the stomach, pepsin and renin are both substances that are going to break down proteins. And so I color-coded them purple. I picked purple for proteins because that made sense to me. And when I say it breaks down proteins, what I mean is it's starting to break them down into smaller amino acids. So as I color code things, we're going to refer back to this. And lipids, we know, are made up of fatty acids, along with that like glycerol molecule that holds them together. And nucleic acids, the subunit of that, are nucleotides. So hopefully yesterday's review assignment, or I should say Friday review assignment, helped reaffirm what some of these things are. All right. So we last left off talking about the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas, mostly just their structures. Today I want to talk about what they're secreting. Now, when we are doing digestion and the stomach releases its bolus, at this point it's not a bolus anymore, it's called chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, and it empties it into the first part of the small intestine, the duodenum, the duodenum. Once that chyme hits the duodenum at the very, very beginning, then the pancreas is going to release a whole slew of enzymes here. It's not important for the test that you can memorize the spelling and writing out of all of these, but it is important you know what each enzyme does, what it breaks down. So this is where I hope the color coding is helpful for you. All right. So we have, and it's in purple here, so that should be a clue to you as to what it breaks down. We have chymotrypsin, we have trypsin, we have carboxypeptidase, and elastase. All of these first ones, I have them all to group together. They're all purple, so that should tell you all of them are involved in protein digestion. You should be able to pick these out of a lineup, okay, and be able to identify which ones are involved in protein digestion. I would not ask you to spell these out, okay, and you don't have to know specifics. But I want you to think about amino acids. Do you remember? I wish we could talk. Do you remember how many amino acids there are in the body? When I assigned you all the different amino acids to build. It was 20. Our body has 20 different amino acids that make up our whole living things. So we have tons of enzymes that break down proteins because we have so many different types of amino acids that need to get broken down. So that's why this list is kind of long. There's lots of protein digesting enzymes because we have tons of different amino acids that need to get broken down into their subunits. All right, other things that the pancreas secretes, we have pancreatic amylase. I have it in pink here because this is relating to more starches. Now it's a little different than the only difference here is that it breaks it down into a disaccharide. So it splits it into a double sugar instead of a single sugar. Those disaccharides get broken down once more in a further step later on. But it's in pink, and hopefully that one's easy for you to remember because amylase from your mouth also broke down starches. All right, then we've got pancreatic lipase. Think lipid for lipase. Okay, and those are going to break down our fats. Okay, so these are breaking down lipids. Lipids are fats, breaking down fats. The one that's not one of the macromolecules, but it's part of these pancreatic secretions is a bicarbonate. If you see the abbreviation, it's like H3O negative. But if you remember when we did our acid and base lab, we had a buffered solution to represent our blood and we had just water. And bicarbonate was the buffer that we used, and it prevented a really strong pH change. So if you think about the secretions from the stomach are leaving, there's tons of hydrochloric acid, stronger than battery acid, getting into my small intestine. My small intestine is pretty hardy, but it's not nearly as hardy as my stomach. It doesn't have nearly the same amount of mucus cells. And so if we don't neutralize that acid right away, then my intestine, is going to be too acidic and it will be harmful for my tissues. She's not even asleep. I think she's faking it. All right. So the bicarbonate is super important to neutralize that stomach acid the minute it enters into that small intestine. So that's super important, but it doesn't actually break anything down. It's just there to neutralize. And then our last one are the nucleases. They're in blue because they break down nucleic acids. We never ever talk about eating DNA, but we need to eat nucleic acids to make nucleotides to anytime our cells divide and we do DNA replication. Anytime we need to make RNA, we need nucleotides in order to create new messenger RNAs or rRNAs or tRNAs. So it is in the things we eat, but it's in such small numbers that we don't really think about it very much. So whenever you're eating something that used to be alive, spinach or steak or chicken or whatever, there's DNA in those cells. And so nucleases break down the nucleic acids into the nucleotide bases. And then our body can do DNA replication or transcription translation with any of those free-floating nucleotides. So you do eat DNA, and our body does use it, but we just turn it into small units before we convert it back to our own bodies. So that's kind of cool. So all of this together is a juice. They call that the pancreatic juice. And when they refer to that, it's all of these secretions and enzymes that the pancreas is secreting. Remember, the liver, the only digestive function that it really has is creating bile, and then the gallbladder stores it and it releases it. And its job is to emulsify fats, break down the fats into smaller chunks. And so that's an important role too. I don't have it included on here because it's just the one thing. All right, we'll talk about the brush border in another video. Okay, so I want to talk about hormone control and how our body regulates the secretions of all of these items. So this is what we're going to go through kind of on the flow chart here, but I want you to think about all of this. Here's that food. Once it's been mixed up in the stomach, we call it chyme. The second that chyme enters into that first part of that small intestine, we're going to see some of these hormones being produced. Okay? So gastrin, okay, is that one hormone we've already talked about. It's secreted by the stomach for secretions in the stomach, and it has important roles there. But once in the small intestine, we're going to see these other hormones, CCK and secretin, being released, along with one other, GIP, that's not listed on this picture here. But this picture isn't in your notes. Just found it online. I thought it was a nice graphic of what we're going to go through. And this is our bicarbonate right here, that the pancreas. So this would be the pancreatic juices along with bicarbonate. And then our gallbladder is being stimulated to release its bile. So that's what we're going to see happen here with these hormones. So all of this we already wrote down. I believe this is on the back page, page 12. And we've already copied this information down, what gastrin's role is in the stomach, okay, and the different cells that secrete it. We talked about the stomach. We talked about our parietal cells and our mucus cells, and we labeled this other one called the enteroendocrine cell. We wrote down G cells that secrete gastrin. That's just a type of enteroendocrine cell. You're going to see that word on your homework assignment. So these are the cells that secrete gastrin. So G cells is just a specific type of enteroendocrine cell, an internal hormone cell. All right. So in our duodenum, we have 3 different hormones that are being secreted. As you can see here, they're going to have effects on our pancreas, our liver, gallbladder, and stomach. The first one is called secretin. I like that one. Okay, secretin stuff. What is it doing? It is telling your pancreas to release the bicarbonate in order to help neutralize that stomach acid. It gets stimulated the second there is food in that small intestine because your body's going to be like, oh, we have a large amount of acid coming in. So it needs to release that bicarbonate. The second thing is it tells your liver to start producing more bile because it knows it's about to use bile. So it says, okay, we need to store up extra bile there in our gallbladder. And so more bile production happens as well at that time. The second hormone is called cholecytokinin, or CCK, cholecytokinin. And this hormone tells the enzyme to release its juices. All of those pancreatic enzymes that was part of the juice mixture that is the pancreatic juice is what it says dump all the juices in, right away at the very start of our small intestine. We're going to dump all those juices in. So that whole list right here gets emptied in with CCK. So CCK stimulates this whole juice blend, okay, of all the enzymes, and it's going to digest every single type of macromolecule, right? We got purple for proteins, we got pink for carbohydrates, we got that yellow for lipids, and then even the blue for nucleic acids. Every macromolecule gets digested from your pancreatic juices. The second thing that CCK stimulates is your gallbladder to release its stored bile. So secretin says, hey, liver, make more bile. And then that currently already stored and waiting bile from the gallbladder gets released with the second hormone, CCK. And then the third hormone also that gets released is called GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide, gastric inhibitory peptide. The word inhibit means to stop or halt, and gastric is in reference to the stomach. And so this hormone tells the stomach, all right, we're starting to empty the stomach into the small intestine. You can stop producing all of this stuff. So gastrin, which was saying like pump out acid, pump out pepsinogen, we need lots of mucus, we need to be all rumbly and churny with our movements. The gastric inhibitory peptide says, whoa, let's slow down with all of this and stop, because we're done with this stage and now we're emptying into the small intestine. So it reduces gastric contractions as well as its secretions. So it's an inhibitory hormone. This is that negative feedback mechanism that we've talked quite a bit about. All right, so here's that same picture, last little bit here. Gastrin, okay, is secreted by the stomach for the stomach. Once that chyme is in the small intestine, CCK and secretin both release, both stimulating our pancreas to release all its juices, our gallbladder, and to release bile, the liver to produce more bile. And then the one that's not mentioned here is GIP, that would tell the stomach, slow down, you don't need to be doing your job as well anymore. So that'll taper down as food moves into the small intestine. And that's it on hormones and enzymes. Make sure and do your homework. And I hope you guys have a great week. Happy Monday. Let me know if you have any questions or problems.